Yeah. So Todd Stanberry.
Correct. Stanberry.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited about this.
I am too.
So it's funny is we haven't, up until this point, we did, how many episodes did we do last season? 40? Mm-hmm. And then this season we might do another 30 or 40.
Yep.
You're the first person that we've had on that I really don't know personally, right? So everybody
Other than bumping into each other at the training ground.
Yeah, we work out at the same gym. And
what gym, by the way?
The training ground.
The training ground.
You know Ian Courier?
So they kind of they do a lot with college and high school athletes, I think. And then, but then they have like a group of trainers, and it's like a subscription based.
Okay, like Benton Skull and Bones kind of thing.
Maybe. I don't know.
So I met Ian before he hadn't had his own place.
Yeah.
You know, when he started out, we were meeting at an Anytime Fitness at 5 a.m.
Gotcha.
And so his mom is Melinda Courier. Remember Jeff and Melinda on KBKI?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's his mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great dude, a little quirky, and he would admit that. But the man knows his craft, and he changed my life. Like, I was lethargic. I was tired all the time. I was pissed off all the time, you know, and he taught me how to eat and how to work out.
Yeah.
And man, I never look back.
Yeah.
Like, makes you feel like a new person.
Right.
You know? So anyway, didn't mean to give a plug for Ian.
No,
but
we need to have
great.
him on. We need to have him on the podcast.
yeah, you should.
Absolutely.
And then Stu, you know.
Yeah, Stuart. Yeah, that's
he's
who
a
I
good
go
dude.
to. Yeah, Stuart. He would never come on the podcast, but he is a good dude.
Yeah.
He took a picture. I made him take a picture. I said, dude, I'm going to give you some props for the work you've done with me, but you got to take a picture, and I'm putting it on Facebook.
Nice.
And he's like, everybody was like, did you know that they posted a picture of you on Facebook?
I'm sure he loves
He's
that.
hilarious. He goes, I asked him, I said something about, I was like, dude, why don't you just order that on Amazon? He's like, oh man, I ordered something off Amazon when it first came out. I didn't like it.
That sounds like him.
He is a simple guy. He has a little Bluetooth speaker, and he watches Netflix on somebody else's account on his iPad, and he's just like, or on his laptop. A very simple guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's great. It's great. But I don't really know you very well. But you know, it's crazy too, is because Metro is in Shreveport, but I doubt you have very many customers in Shreveport.
We have one.
One, okay.
Yep.
And so, but most of your, you know, clientele would be all over the world.
That's
probably,
right.
I guess.
Yeah,
So-
we're in 27 states and DC.
So tell for people that don't know, you build helicopters, right?
We
Or
don't build them.
You outfit them.
We complete them.
Got it.
So there's basically 2 service lines to Metro Aviation.
Okay.
I'll go all the way back because it's actually a pretty good story.
Yeah, do it. Well, I want to hear it.
Yeah. So my dad, Mike, started the company in January 29th of 1982. So we just turned 43.
Wow.
Out of a little trailer on Plank Road right outside the main gate of the Baton Rouge Metro Airport. Hence the name Metro Aviation, by the way.
Okay.
He was a marketing major. And actually, we weren't in the air medical business at all. He's an LSU grad. Him and his fraternity brother started a construction company called Louisiana Hydromulchers. Y'all know what hydromulch is?
No.
You've seen it a million times. You just didn't know it had a name. When they put in a new highway or interstate and they build up the dirt on both sides and then they spray that funny colored green stuff.
Yeah.
That's hydromulch.
Okay.
Makes the grass grow quicker. It's
it.
erosion control, basically.
Okay.
So he had one of the first hydromulch machines in the state of Louisiana. And so they were doing well, getting jobs with the government. You know, as you can imagine, though, they had to go long distance to go to the job sites because it's interstates, right? So both fixed wing pilots, so airplane pilots, and what they do is they'd leave Baton Rouge from right there at the airport in that trailer and fly and rented like a Cessna 172 or something, and they'd fly to wherever they're going or as close as they could get to where they were going. Land at the airport, rent a car, and then drive the rest of the way to the job site. Well, he did that 6 or 8 times. He's like, you know, this would be a lot more efficient if I had a helicopter because then I could just land at the job site. I don't need a runway. And so he leased the first aircraft that Metro ever had, which was a little Instrom. I wish I had a picture of it. Looks like a toy. It's a little 2-seater piston reciprocating engine. It's tiny. But got his helicopter license, and that worked great because then he could just go straight to the job site. Well, to pay the note on that helicopter, he would rent it out to people that wanted to go for a joyride or get aerial photography of their duck lease or whatever to pay the note on it. And that rolled along a little while. Well, then he ended up on, speaking of hunting, he was on a hunting trip, deer hunting trip with a buddy of his who was in banking. And this is in the late 70s, like Jimmy Carter era, interest rates were like 18%, which was great for bankers, terrible for the rest of us. But this guy, over a beer at a deer lease where he was belly aching about the way he had to move his money to get it down to the Federal Reserve in New Orleans back then when it was still functioning was via armored truck. And he was belly aching about the unreliability of armored truck drivers. If they even showed up for work, they'd most of the time show up late or they'd call off, being sick or whatever. So, again, over a few cocktails, Dad's like, being the entrepreneur that he is, he's like, well, you need to quit using armored trucks and start using helicopters to move your money. And the guy's like, well, how the hell am I going to do that? He's like, well, here's what I got. He's like, you get something fast and sporty like a Hughes 500D model. You ever seen reruns of Magnum PI?
Oh, yeah.
The striped helicopter, it kind of looks like an egg. It's real fast. And that's a Hughes 500. So he's like, you get one of those. He's like, you got a American flag at all your branches, right? He's like, oh, yeah. He's like, well, here's what you do. You get one of those big canvas money bags and you put all your cash and checks in that money bag, zip it up. It's got big leather handles, hook it onto a flagpole, run it up the flagpole. He's like, we don't even have to land. We'll just put that Hughes 500 in a hover right over the top of the flagpole. We'll have a pilot and we'll have a guy in the back, a hook man, and he'll have one of those long telescoping booms with a hook on the end of it. We'll just grab the money off the top of that flagpole, chunk it in the back. We'll go to all your branches all over the state and we'll have the money delivered to the Federal Reserve the same day. He's like, really? You can do that? Like, that's legal? He's like, oh, yeah. So on a handshake agreement that night at that deer lease, Dad woke up the next morning, went and took out loans to buy 3 of those because it was going to take 3 of them to do this whole operation. And that ended up being Dad's first lesson in business, always get it in writing. Because before he could put the first one of those Hughes 500D models in service, the bank in Baton Rouge sold to a bigger bank in Memphis. Wow. And the new owner said, sorry, this is too risky. We're not into helicopter correspondent banking. Good luck. So literally overnight, Dad had notes on 3 brand new helicopters and no job. So he loaded up me and my mom in this old Chevy pickup. I've still got a picture of it. We got an old blown up Polaroid hanging in the conference room. Drove us up here to Shreveport to take a meeting with Sister Agnesita. So Shumpert Medical Center was the big hospital, in Shreveport in the early 80s. And at that time, the hospital was run by the nuns, by the Catholic diocese. And Sister Agnesita was the lady you saw if you wanted anything done at Shumpert Medical Center. And he had been recently to the first big helicopter convention Metro had ever been to, called Heli Expo. And it was out in Anaheim, California. And the big talk in the early 80s was using helicopters to move patients. Got its inspiration from the TV series MASH and the movie. Yeah. Remember that, out in Korea and they put them on the skid and, y'all seen that show. Well, that was the inspiration.
Yeah, that show meant it was bedtime for me. So
yeah, that's right. I still remember it coming on at my grandparents' house.
Yeah. Come on after the news. All right, time to go to bed.
Yep. Yeah. So that was the inspiration for it. And he, needed something to do with these helicopters. And by the way, Metro was the name, but it was a charter company. Because remember, that was what he was using to pay for his primary business, which was Louisiana Hydromulchers. Well, now he's got these helicopters and he's got no home for them. So he had heard about helicopter EMS at this convention. And so he went and met with Sister Agnesita and he said, I've got the perfect thing for Shumpert and this is what you need. And, he's a great salesman. And Sister Agnesita thought a minute and she said, that sounds great, Mike, but I don't have it in the budget. I've got about half. And he basically said, well, hold that thought. And he knew that KSLA, y'all remember Shumpert was on Margaret Place. I mean, the building's still there, but right across the street from Shumpert Medical Center was the local CBS affiliate, which is KSLA. They're still there. He took a meeting with the station manager for KSLA, and what they came up with was a joint venture between Shumpert and the news station. They called it Life I-12. This actually happened, by the way. This wasn't like the thing with the bank.
Yeah.
And what they did is they had a pilot, flight nurse, and then a camera operator in the front. And then there are 4 seats on this helicopter. In the 4th seat, they had a folding stretcher that they'd keep in there. And they'd lift off. We built a rooftop helipad on the parking deck at Shumpert. It's still there to this day. And the helicopter would stay up there right between the hospital and the news station. They'd lift off, get their news footage for the day. If they got a call for a car crash, out in some rural area, they'd fly to the scene. And before they land, the cameraman would get footage of the car crash. They'd land at the scene. Cameraman and flight nurse would go take that folding stretcher, put the patient on the stretcher. They had retrofitted the doors because on a Hughes 500, the doors open like a car, like this. They retrofitted them to open like this on the side so they could fit that stretcher in there unfolded, and they had hard points fore and aft where they could attach the stretcher. Had to fold the seat down, though. So now we have one less seat. So cameraman would stay by the side of the road, call a call a taxi for him. But before they left the scene, they'd get the film out of his camera and bring it back with them. And they'd land on that rooftop helipad at Shumpert, bring the patient down to the ED, and then they'd have a courier come from across the street at KSLA to get that film. And they'd drop it in their news cycle for the day. And that was how they got breaking news coverage of a vehicle crash in, south of Shreveport or whatever. That actually happened and lasted all of about 6 months.
Okay.
And then Sister Agnesita's like, I don't want to share with the news station anymore. We're actually getting a lot of calls. This is a viable operation. I want my own helicopter.
Oh, cool.
So that's how we got into what is now the completion business, because back then nobody was really, when you buy a helicopter, it's not like buying a new car. You don't go down to the lot, pick out the one you want and drive it off and everything's good. When you buy a new helicopter, it's what they call a green airframe. It's this ugly prime coat color green. There's no interior. There's very little avionics. It's not painted. So you have to complete the aircraft. So that's about 30% of what we do is completions, where we actually put a medical interior in it. We paint it according to the hospital's logo and livery. We put the right radios in it, medical equipment, O2, suction, whatever they need, mounts. We're like Pimp My Ride for helicopters, basically. Like but back then nobody was really doing that. And so there was one company that was making kind of this modular design. You just kind of plug and play kind of thing, one size fits all. And it was terrible because, like, for example, so we got Sister Agnesita into, and we thought we had died and gone to heaven at this point because we're operating a twin engine, turbine powered, jet turbine, right? Just like on a jet engine. BO 105. This was a German helicopter. It was at the time the biggest thing you'd see in EMS. But the cool part about it was, unlike the Hughes 500, it had rear loading clamshell doors, just like on a ground ambulance. So you load the patient in from the back, right? You slide them in. But there was no interior worth a damn, because this one company that was making them, they'd made, for example, the cabinetry at perfect 90-degree angles. Well, once you're up to altitude in the BO 105, it flies at a nose down attitude. So the nurse would go to open the cabinet to get whatever she needed, rubber gloves or whatever, and everything would fall out on her head. Yeah. So that's about the time we brought on Milton Geltz, our managing director. So we've been around 43 years. He's been around for 43 of those 43 years. And he's a mechanic. And Dad met him and he said, I can do better. I can do you better than this company. And so we figured out a way to make our own interiors and kind of fill that void. And that was the beginning. And I mentioned we had one contract in Shreveport. So that was it. Okay. Life I-12 was the name of that program when it was still with the news station, for the life-saving capability of Shumpert Medical Center and the eyewitness news of Channel 12. Lasted 6 months. Yeah. Got a new aircraft for Sister Agnesita, sold the other. Life I-12 became Life Air 1. And then we find out Willis Knighton, the other big hospital in Shreveport, had contracted with one of our competitors to make a program called Air Rescue. Well, Shreveport's not big enough to have 2 helicopters. And both hospitals, they called my dad one night. They're like, look, we can't keep doing this. It's not working. Dad said, let's figure this out. And to this day, I'm not aware, and I've asked some of the administrators at both hospitals, because now Shumpert's now part of the Christus system.
Yep.
If this is true, but to my knowledge, it's the only thing those 2 hospitals ever collaborated on, and that was the air medical program. Wow. So Life Air One and Air Rescue became Life Air Rescue.
Okay. And that's still around.
And that's still around. We operate that program 43 years later. Acadian Ambulance actually does the clinical and the patient billing. And the primary actually receiver for those patients is LSU Ochsner now, because they're a trauma center. But if you're getting airlifted, you're in pretty bad shape. So that's where you want to go.
So that's the second half of the company, right?
That's right.
So that's completing for other clients and then running that air
operations is what used to be kind of a smaller part of the business. Completions was carry and operations. Mm-hmm. Now it's the exact inverse. Opposite. About 30% of what we do is completions. The other 70% is operations. And we operate for 42 different hospitals all over the country. We've got 175 aircraft, 1,100 and almost 1,200 employees, coast to coast. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Josh, you cover a lot of ground every day. You live in Grand Cane.
Right.
You have a Halton store, a Blanchard store.
Yeah.
I guess you didn't put a helicopter pad on top of those.
Well, listen, our roofs are very flat, and I think it's probably doable.
It's a viable option.
It's probably doable. So we'll have to talk after this.
Sure.
But so, listen, Todd, this is an incredible story.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I love the news thing, and them riding together is just hilarious.
Well, this is before HIPAA, but right? You can't do that anymore.
Yeah, if Ivey's was going to afford a helicopter, you might have to go in with 3 other people and share some services.
For sure. We would have to really collaborate. But
I like the using the pole to get the money off the flagpole.
I started thinking right off the bat, I'm sorry, man. This is where my mind went. It's too much Netflix. I was like, man, this guy would be like perfect for cartels or something.
A bank heist.
You laugh. We actually did a completion. Do y'all remember
Pablo Escobar? Yes, I do.
Well, so they made a movie out of this guy, and Tom Cruise played the lead role.
Yeah, from Arkansas.
Yeah, and he was doing drug runs and Piper Senecas and stuff.
Was that Blow?
No. It was I forget the name of the movie, but it was.
But he was with Pablo Escobar. He was running out of Arkansas.
In Arkansas. Yeah, it was like a Southern Arkansas thing.
Yeah. We actually ended up doing. Milton told me this story when that movie came out. A Hughes 500 for that guy, and I can't remember his name. It's just escaping me at the moment.
Wow.
But that was a real thing, and it was. It was crazy.
So now the helicopters you are completing is what you call it. You're doing medical. Is that all you're doing is medical?
On the completion side, we're agnostic. We do the coolest thing we do on the completion side is law enforcement. Those guys have some really cool toys, FLIR systems, and
I'm sorry. What is that?
It's forward-looking infrared. So y'all remember when they caught the Boston Marathon bomber, and they were looking through the boat with the infrared image. Yeah. So that was a completion we did for Massachusetts State Police. They actually have 3 EC-135s, and that was one of those aircraft. So it was done right here in little old Shreveport.
Wow,
man.
That is insane.
Yeah, that's so cool. So you got the medical side, you got law enforcement. Who else would be a customer?
We've got VIP. So we've done. Not supposed to talk about it, but some higher ups in the software world that you've probably heard of. Gotcha. Jack Links, Harrison Ford. We did a 407 for Harrison Ford. Kenny's got a great story about closing down an Applebee's. Okay. He likes Tito's vodka apparently. Okay. So, there's just some really cool things that we've gotten to do. Just real blessings for. And it's not me. It's, like I said, 1,200 individuals that are really good at what they do.
So on on the completion side, if I place an order, today, what's the turnaround?
About 100 working days.
100 working days.
Yeah. Between 4 and 5 months.
My father-in-law, and this is an episode from last season, but his dad was an entrepreneur in South Louisiana, and they built tugboats.
Oh, cool.
And for a while, he had finished college and he went to go run the building process, and he talks about it on the podcast. But he says, I knew that as soon as they put that metal on the ground, I think he said 90 days to have it on the water and running.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And so anyways, he talks about it, but that's kind of what it sounds like,
It really depends on where it's going. Law enforcement tends to be a little longer, unless it's somebody we've done a lot of work for Texas DPS, and they operate A-Stars, which are smaller single engine aircraft. We've done so many of those that we kind of have a rhythm, so those are a little faster. But if it's a brand new customer, a lot of times we, kind of trial by error, if it's something new. But yeah, and then you get children's hospitals who love teddy bears and bunny rabbits and stuff. So the paint schemes on those, that's what ends up taking the longest. We actually had an airbrush artist on staff for a while because we were, for some reason, getting a lot of orders from children's hospitals. So yeah, it's really cool.
So is your dad still part of the business?
He is. Yeah. He'll turn 75 this year, still comes to work every day, shows up about 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Stirs the pot real good, and then he's off, but we're it's a blessing, you don't family owned business. You really don't have that. A lot of times, you have the founder and then he passes away and then the kids are like, whatever, I don't know, but I'm blessed to be able to be a part of that and be able to have him here to ask questions, same thing with Milton, those guys, the two of them have a lot of tribal knowledge. We're trying to end that, and pay that forward so that we can keep this thing going for a while.
Do you know that, Phils?
What's that?
Just trying to turn the page to the next generation.
Yeah, but it's a similar thing, right? So like your dad comes in and you're appreciative, and I'm sure in your circumstance, even on the most trying days, there's a gratitude of like, man, this guy's here, and that means a lot, and I need to cherish this moment, right? Like I need to cherish this idea that I get to spend time with him.
That's right.
Yeah.
But then you might have some ideas that you're like, hey, I wish that we could
sure,
yeah. There's no lack of butting heads. I can assure you.
Right.
Both very strong-willed human beings.
Yeah, that's what. So Josh works with his dad every day too.
Oh,
so
yeah. Man, how many of these employees actually work in Shreveport?
About 200.
About 200.
Yeah. Wow. Well, 225, something like that. Yeah. All those, for the most part, are out in the shop. Y'all ought to come by.
We do need to come by.
I'd be glad to give you a tour.
I usually pass by when I go to farmers to pick up some.
It's not really anywhere you would happen upon. Yeah. But yeah, I would love to host you.
So, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because, and I told you this at the gym, but I've tried to hire some of your employees before, and none of them will leave. They're like, no, I have it too good. Like I'll even make a better offer, and they're like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that as a business owner, that means that y'all have a really good culture. And because, we talk about it a lot, turning over and people coming and going. But to have, you mentioned Milton being there for 43 years. And then I would imagine you have a lot of people there that have been there 20 plus years.
We've got generations of people. Yeah. Our payroll and benefits manager is married to our logistics coordinator, and both of their sons actually work on the floor at Metro. Jake is our production shop manager, and his brother is out slinging wrenches and doing great things. And it's just such a testament to what Dad built, but then what we've been able to carry on, which is we're a people first organization. Like, yes, we do some cool things, but we are very quick to recognize that it's them that's doing this job. And, we invest in them. Yeah. Like it's not a hard equation, but like, for example, we pay all their benefits. And it's not like there's some fine print somewhere. It's literally, we pay for your health care, no payroll deduction. And then we pay for your spouse and your dependents too. Because we don't think it should be a privilege. It should be a right, that people have health care. If they have a job, they should have health care. Yeah. And that's just we got a great 401k, and we just got a great leadership development curriculum. We started a couple of years ago because we figured out that a lot of times people have leadership qualities and they don't realize it. And it actually all started, we had this it's kind of funny. We had a door decorating contest that one of the ladies in HR brought to me and Kenny, and it was hard to suppress an eye roll. It's like, really, we're gonna, they're gonna go down to Hobby Lobby and get a ghost and hang it on their door and then want $500. Like, really. But what happened was it blew my mind. Like, we had a guy in avionics that put together this. Like, the rule was you had to use the door in your department, a door. Because some departments have double doors or even triple doors, like, we got to keep it fair. And these guys made this scene of like an old Huey with like these skeletons, and they'd wrapped them in saran wrap and dyed the saran wrap in wood dye and then heat shrunk it, and then to make it look like rotting flesh. I mean, this was like Hollywood grade special effects. Like, the paint shop made their door look like it was boiling. I don't know how and like little bones and fingers and stuff sticking out of it. That's and then awesome. They did the lighting and smoke and they spent weeks on this stuff.
Yeah.
And nobody's paying them to do this. Yeah. Like, they just came together and did it. And we're like, we really need to make more opportunities because there's all these hidden talents that we didn't know about. Yes, they're excellent at completing aircraft, but there's other things that they're doing, and they're leading when they're doing it. And we need to be thinking about the next generation. We got a shop full of guys that are 60 plus, and because of society, everybody thinks you need to go to college. And it's like, well, guess what? Maybe there's something you're really good at with your hands. We need to exploit that. So this really kind of just blew up.
So the leadership curriculum, is that something y'all created, or?
It's kind of both. Our HR director ran into this guy at a HR conference, and he works for a company called WildSpark. And we called this whole thing Metro University. And to enroll in Metro University, you have to apply, just like college. And I personally read every application the first year we did this. But before we even opened it up to our employees, we wanted to vet it and make sure, because everything we do is high quality. We wanted to make sure this was no different. So Kenny Morrow, I keep mentioning his name. He's really the one that runs Metro. Good friend of mine, been there 30 years. He started a team and I started a team. And we wanted to vet this out. So we did it for a year before we ever opened it up to the rest of the whole company. And it is really cool. Metro University is the campus. WildSpark is the curriculum.
Okay.
And they have, it's a unit-based, you do one lesson a month. Basically, if you're a student at Metro U, it's an hour of your time that we're asking for. And because we're spread out all over the country, it has to be done virtually, which I hate. I'd really rather it be like this. But the cool aspect of it is we're able to connect and make the company smaller. Because I still remember back in the day when we had the annual company Christmas party, it was in our living room, and there was plenty of room on the couch, and everybody knew everybody's spouse and kids. And we're not that way anymore. We're 1,200 strong. So we're able to bring it in. And we've got mechanics in Bend, Oregon that are on a team with a pilot in Orlando, Florida, and there may be a records lady from Shreveport, and then a logistics specialist in Lebanon, New Hampshire, all on the same team. They could have spent their career at Metro and never met each other. And it's just, we find out little stories. Like we find out these two guys had both lost their dad within a week of each other, and they were on the same team, and they were actually able to connect in a different way because of that and share that story, and they're closer now. And it just, the things that have happened because of this opportunity that we've given, it just, you talk about loyalty and commitment, like they're never going to leave, man.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you offer them, man.
Yeah.
But it's cool. Because it's inherent in what they're doing. Like, it becomes about more than money and benefits and all that other stuff. It's just human connection.
Yeah. I have a leadership phrase that I always quote is, what reaches people keeps people. And what I found is that, to growing a company by going and taking people from other organizations and bringing them in, you're going to reach them by paying them more money, right? Well, to keep them, you're just going to have to keep paying them more money, right? And so then, but if you take them from the ground up, and that's so cool to hear generations at the same company, right? But you take them and you give them the tools and the training, they're going to be loyal to you most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really cool.
So this company is so unique. right? What you do is so unique. I mean, this is not like, like us, there's like 15 different companies who do what we do. But for you, I'm wondering, to sharpen your blade, do you meet with other like non-competitor companies? I mean, like where do you go for like peer learning and growth like that? Is there anything like that?
That's a great question. We tend to do our own thing, but there are a handful of, it's a pretty small industry. There's about 3 other companies that do what we do, but it's different because they're owned by private equity. We're really the last one that's a family owned business. And so they have different motivation. They're great companies. But it's, you learn a lot of this just by doing and having relationships with other people that do what you do. But it's unique in that you're not ever going to find another place where all of this is under the same roof. So, for example, one of those companies has a completion center, but it's a separate arm of that company, and their primary business model is more military and parapublic, like fire suppression and doing dropping water on big forest fires and stuff. So it's it's the same, but it's pretty vastly different. I mentioned the conference. So Heli Expo is now called Verticon. It's kind of weird saying that because it's like, I feel like I need to put on a costume before I go, but we just went, it's in the early spring every year. And it's not just EMS. So it's all things helicopters. And because they call Verticon, it's, drones and eVTOL and stuff. We can talk about that later, but there's a lot of folks that show up. I mean, it's, 20,000 people show up to this conference. Wow. And that's a great place to, they always have education opportunities. But for us, it's really more about networking with other folks that do what we do. We learn a lot there, but then also throughout the year because you develop those relationships and then they either come to you or you go to them and find out how that. We just had the guys from Robinson Helicopters. They, another family owned business, been around a long time. We've never really dabbled in that area because the helicopters they make are mainly geared toward training, like taking a 0-time pilot and him learning how to fly. To come to Metro, you've got to have a minimum of 2,000 flight hours. That takes a long time to acquire. So we're not really in the 0 to 2,000 market, but they recently came out with a new aircraft that we think could work for us. So we were meeting with them and we learned their story. And they're out in Torrance, California. They're doing things on a scale that's totally different from us because they've got I think he told me they had 70 transmissions just something on their dock for one day. Like we deal with 1s and 2s of transmissions, when we're repairing an aircraft or doing an overhaul. So it's cool to see kind of that scale. But to your question, there's just not a lot of folks that do it the way, there's really not any that do it the way we do it. So we do a lot of kind of paving the way, Yes. We have been to other operators to see their OCC, their Operational Control Center. So when you have 10 or more aircraft on your certificate, you have to have an OCC. Some people just kind of check the box. For us, and y'all would see this if you came, we have what we call an enhanced OCC because we have a whole different company that does flight data monitoring. And we had to pave the way for that because nobody was doing it. You hear about the little black box, like you watch on a movie with an airline and it crashes and where's the little black box? We got to find. This is the little black box, but for helicopters. And it's not about accident investigation. It's about accident prevention. So because of a relationship we have with Viasat, which is a satellite company, we're able to get live information about every one of all 175 of those aircraft are sending data down to our OCC every second. So we know literally every second where every aircraft is. And we actually have push to talk anywhere in the world, including the polar ice caps.
Wow.
For what's going on with that aircraft. Because in the old days, everybody loaded up, closed the doors, pulled pitch, and you just kind of hope for the best till they get back, Yeah. We didn't want to continue that trend. So Milton went down to Radio Shack when they were still in business, bought a residential grade home video system because it had a removable disk drive so that he could at least find out what happened and, settle all these arguments that flight nurses were having with pilots about who did things wrong, you know. But now we can do that in real time.
Wow.
It's pretty cool, man. You need to come see it.
That is cool. I do. Yeah, we need to. Wow. Have y'all been able to take advantage of our proximity to the Air Force Base?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have a strong relationship with Barksdale. Funny enough, I met a guy on the soccer field. Both of our sons play soccer. And we were just talking one day. His name's Warren Carroll. Super, super smart guy. And we were talking, you know, he's a B-52 pilot. And I'm like, man, you need to come see what we're doing over here at Metro. And one thing led to another. And he's introducing my dad to like 3- and 4-star generals in the Air Force. And we find out the doesn't have. By the way, we probably need to edit that. But, you know, these are our war fighters. Like, and so they figure out what we're doing at Outerlink, and they're like, we want that.
Yeah.
And so now we're equipping with.
Yeah.
And they did a fly off last June, and it was so cool, man. Had all these generals there, and they're like, wow, this really works. And we're like, yeah, we told you.
That's really
cool. And that was all because of a chance meeting on the side of the soccer field with a really smart lieutenant colonel. Yeah. And he works for us now.
Yeah, well, I would imagine that, you know, because I see so many of the Air Force people I know that 20 years, you know, they're in their early 40s getting out of the Air Force, looking for a second career. And some of that would translate over.
40% of our workforce is military, current military or ex-military.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're very blessed to have that relationship. Those guys are great guys, you know.
How many helicopters are y'all completing a year, roughly?
We have the ability to do between 30 and 40. And it hasn't always been that way. So when we first moved up here from Baton Rouge, we were actually squatting at my grandfather's Quonset hut hangar, didn't even have money to pay him rent. My first job at Metro was counting parts in that place. Mm-hmm. It was a closet about a fifth the size of this room, you know, with a clipboard and number 2 pencil, count no rings. But anyway, so we had that building, and over the years we would add on another hangar or two. By the time we left there, we were in like 6 different hangars, but it was all discombobulated, right? If you wanted to take an aircraft from avionics to the engine shop, you had to come out the back, take a left, go down the taxiway, take another left, go into a different building. And it was not efficient. So we're like, we need to put all this, like I said, under one roof. Well, at the airport, you don't own the ground. The best you can do is a 25-year lease. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of that lease, it all reverts to the airport. So we're like, we don't want to do that. So we found this building. It's actually the old Solo Cup building on Hawn Avenue, right next to Farmer Seafood. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was around about the time that Solo and Sweetheart merged, and they closed down a lot of their third-tier markets. So this building was just sitting vacant. You know, sellers were highly motivated. We got that building for about a sixth of what we would have paid to build a new building that would have been half the size. Yeah. So it's 160,000 square feet. We've actually expanded 3 times. And so we ended up being able to pull everything in, and now we've got it all under one roof, and it's worked great. Like, we first moved in there, Milton's like, man, what's the cost? He did the cost benefit from walking one end of the building to the other. We ended up getting Segways. Because he figured out the amount of time that we're losing just having people walk back and forth, you know, in this massive building.
That's why you can't get those guys. They got Segways. Come on, man.
Yeah, but, you know, now you can't get parts for Segway. So anyway.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little cool stories like that, you know, how it all came together.
Yeah, you know, it's almost like just the engineering that it sounds like that takes place there is just a ton of problem solving, and it's really cool. Just a lot of smart people in the same place.
And for the longest time, our engineer, who wasn't even, you know, a certified engineer, Russell Garner, he would just figure things out on the back of a cocktail napkin. You know, he's just that kind of guy that could just build anything.
Yeah.
And we've paid that forward. We got several folks in that department now that do that, but it's really cool to see how people solve problems at Metro, you know, and they're proud of it.
Well, and part of it is, you know, it sounds like it's a culture thing, right? Because you want to empower your people to do that. You know, you don't want to have to micromanage them or, you know, a big part of that is allowing mistakes to happen. You know, kind of having some forgiveness.
That's how you learn, man.
Yeah, that's how you learn. Yeah. I like it.
Well, I'm curious, as you talk about, I think about all these people in these departments and these very talented, very skilled people. And with the company's growth and you're at this huge employee count, I'm thinking about you now. And so I'm wondering, when you kind of take that mental model of what you bring to this organization to sort of keep it all going, what are the things that your giftings you think you have that make this work? Like what are you bringing to the table, right?
That's a great question. Very little.
I disagree. I'm going to push back on that. I don't think that's right.
I'm a people person, Josh, and I think that's my gift, is that I like to connect people with other people. Before I came to y'all this morning, I met a potential new pilot that we're thinking about hiring in the great state of Ohio. His name's Cade. And I just wanted to sit down with him and hear his story. And he's got 4 girls. God bless him. Probably doesn't get a word in edgewise. But he's seen it all, done it all. He worked in tourism out in the Grand Canyon. And then he worked for 2 of our different competitors and had an issue where they wouldn't let him grow a beard. And so he's like, man, I heard that I can have a beard at Metro. And I'm like, yep, you sure can, And so we just talked, mm-hmm. And when you let people let their guard down, it's pretty cool what you can find out, and look, we're not immune to it. There's a worldwide pilot shortage right now, and has been since COVID.
Really?
And we can thank the airlines for that. They fired a lot of people, and then they quickly needed to hire them back. And then they figured out, well, we got to get them through the pipeline, because while they were gone, all their skills and certifications expired, because, you got to keep that going. You got to constantly be training. And so it actually benefited us, because we're able to say, hey, and by the way, I probably didn't tell you all this. We don't have a sales department. We don't have a sales team. All of the business that we get is pretty much word of mouth. We're not out there banging on doors trying to steal business from our competitors. We just keep our nose clean and run a safe operation and let the rest speak for itself. We do have a marketing department run by Kristen King. She's amazing. She was shot at in Desert Storm. She stared down Saddam Hussein in his trial. Pretty cool story there. But she's running our marketing department, and she does a great job, with social media, which is something she had to drag me kicking and screaming, and my dad. I've never really liked it, but something you got to do.
Yeah.
And she put that out there. We basically retooled the marketing department to be the recruiting department and do nothing but just tell our story. And so we were able to find talent through, when all the airlines were doing their thing. We're like, hey, guess what? If you have your pilot's license and you've got at least 2,000 hours, there are other options. You don't have to just go to Delta or American. You can actually come and work for us. And guess what? We're a 7 on, 7 off hitch. You're going to be with your family every night when you're done.
That's cool.
And so that's what this guy was talking to me about. He's like, hey, I get to go home and be with my daughters. That's what's important to me. And we're like, yeah, you should do that. And guess what? You can do that here, And so I think that's what I can offer, is just listening. For some reason, that seems to be a lost art. People hear people, but they don't listen.
Sure. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
It's
pretty cool. We had a keynote speaker at we bring our customers in every year, once a year. We call it our LEAD conference, Leadership, Education, Advancement, Development. We call it unofficially Program Directors Boot Camp, because, these hospitals, they're great. They're our customers. They're what put dinner on my table, but they do a very poor job of equipping their leaders, because they see a person who's a good clinician, they're great at intubating people on the side of the road. And they say, you're a great clinician. We need you to run this program now.
Yeah.
It's got 5 helicopters and 20 ground trucks and 2 airplanes.
Yeah.
Here's the keys.
Yeah.
Now go make money. I know how to intubate people.
Yeah.
They've never seen a strategic marketing plan. They've never looked at a profit and loss statement. They don't know how to manage people. So we were like, let's bring these people in and show them how we do it, so that they can go out and pay that forward to their programs. And one of the keynotes we had is a guy named Clint Pulver. Y'all should look him up.
Okay.
He wrote a book called I Love It Here. And one of the things he says is, you don't need to, number one, you need to work on your to-don't list instead of your to-do list. But there's something about empowering people in a way that lets them know you got their back, right? One of the inherent problems in our industry, you hear a lot, especially this year, about aviation accidents. Mm-hmm. That's something we're very passionate about. It's pretty much a way of life at Metro, our safety philosophy. And it didn't just happen by accident. It's because we empowered people, to your point, Leighton. We tell pilots, and I told Cade this morning, you don't feel good about something, turn it down, man. Like, yes, we're there to do a job. They're paying you to take flights, but it ain't worth risking your life over. If something doesn't feel right, if the temperature and dew point are a little close together, or you don't like the way this cloud looks, I'd much rather you debate that on the ground and talk about later how you wish you would have taken that flight, rather than be up there and say, man, I wish we were on the ground right now. Like, that's a problem that's easily solved if you empower people to make that decision. I mean, these guys are professionals, right? You don't earn 2,000 hours and then just come to us and it's like rolling off a log. You learned a lot of lessons the hard way if you made it that far. Yeah. And we have to empower them to do that. So who am I to second guess these guys when they're out in the field looking, and it's not like when you go to get a ticket on Delta, like you show up at a certain time and they're going to carry you somewhere at a controlled airspace to a controlled airspace, and they're watching you the whole way. Mm-hmm. When we get a call, sometimes it's 3:30 in the morning and you've already taken 3 or 4 flights later in that early morning shift, and you're tired, and the weather's questionable, and you're somebody out there is having the worst day of their life, and you need to go pick them up. So it's a hard thing to be able to say no, but they have to know that they're supported. So that's my job, I guess. Yeah, add to sum all that up is I have to let them know that they will be supported, right? Yeah. And we had a guy out in Michigan. This was last summer. It was a scene call, right? So just like the old Life Air One days, right? That was where a lot of hospitals did their transports, was picking up people in car crashes. Not so much anymore. Now it's more about inter-facility transfers, taking them from a lower level of care to a higher level of care. But they still do scene work. So this was a scene call out in the middle of nowhere in Michigan, cornfield. There was one little open space, but it had power lines on 2 sides and a trailer on the other side. So the pilot had to do a real steep approach. He was basically coming straight down. But when we do scene calls, you have to do an orbit, which is a recon loop. You've got to look for other obstructions, take your time, look at everything. And it was right at dusk, which is a strange time of day for helicopter work. We wear NVGs, night vision goggles, everywhere we go at night. This was dusk, so it was kind of that questionable period of, okay, do I need him? Do I not need him? He decided he didn't because the sun was still out, but it's that weird time of day when things are casting shadows. And he didn't see there was a tree in the middle of this field, about 8 feet tall, small tree. And the volunteer fire department that set up the landing zone didn't say anything about it. Crew didn't say anything about it. They all had their NVGs on. They're supposed to be looking out, making spatial awareness. So he does this steep approach. Well, the whole time that tree's right underneath him. He ended up pretty much landing on the tree. Everybody was fine. They get out of the aircraft and they're like, oh, that's not good. Did a couple $100,000 worth of damage to the main rotor system. He knew immediately. Everybody was okay, but the first thing he did was call his supervisor and say, man, I screwed up. He didn't blame the kid in the volunteer fire department that had probably never set up a landing zone for a helicopter. Right. Yeah. He didn't blame him for not calling out the tree. He didn't blame the comm center. He didn't blame the crew for not having eyes out. He took ownership of that. And I believe it's because of what we were talking about earlier, empowering people, because he knew he would be supported. Yeah. Now, we flew up there the very next, within 24 hours, we were there. I wanted to meet this guy. I wanted to talk to him. 1,200 people. I can't remember everybody's name. I try, but I needed to look him in the eye and tell him, you're okay. Yeah. And we're going to support you. Now, if he had a different attitude about that, if he just started blaming everybody but himself, it had probably been a different outcome. Yeah. And we've had that happen. We had an ex-Marine One pilot fly over 3 perfectly good airports to get gas. Whole time the gongs are going off. Hey, low fuel, low fuel, low fuel. And the crew's like, patient's fine. Like, you can land. We've done this route before. He ended up landing on a rooftop helipad 6 stories up with 6 minutes of gas. Now, to give y'all a frame of reference, everywhere we go, you got to have a 40-minute reserve. Okay? 40-minute reserve. He had already done the primary tanks. He was down to 6 minutes left in the reserve tank. Big no. You ask anybody in our industry, like, you're done.
Yeah.
And then he was about to lift off and go get fuel once they dropped a patient. And then he started blaming everybody. Mechanic ended up having to hump 2 5-gallon buckets of jet fuel up 6 flights of stairs because they wouldn't let him put it on the freight elevator because it's jet fuel. He was not happy about that. So totally different outcome, right? And this guy was an ex-Marine one pilot. So he was flying the president. You'd think he would have his wits about him, right? And we're like, dude, nobody was shooting at you. Like, you're not in the Marines anymore. Like, it's okay. You could have stopped.
Yeah.
But it was his ego that got the best of him.
Yeah.
He had that mission mindset. Go. I'm doing this at all costs. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You know,
That's kind of my thing. Is I like to tell my people, look, if you can have a good attitude and a hard work ethic,
that's what we hire for.
You're going to be taken care of. Like, you know, just those 2 things. We'll train you on everything else.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
So really quickly, because, you know, listen, this story has been incredible, and I learned so much about your company. And obviously I see your guys in Chipotle. Like, I'm always in Chipotle. I'm like, these Metro guys, always in Chipotle for some reason.
It's good stuff.
It's great. I love it. Yeah. I'm there too. So to be fair, but look, I know so little about helicopters, but I know I'm terrified of them, right? Like, so
for safer than that truck you drove to work in today.
Okay, so like, look, Kobe Bryant, you know, I'm kind of thinking
never should have taken off.
They never should have taken off.
No, and that pilot knew better.
It's funny. My one of my friends, Trevor, flies I think he has a Mooney plane. You know, he's just a hobby plane, and he has a hangar house in Fort Worth. And every time he wants me to fly with him, and I'll never get up with him. And he had this one plane one time, because every time he wants me to fly, he's like, "What's your weight?" And I'm like, "Dude, come on." And then he's like, his last plane, he's like, "Oh no, we can still do it. I'll just it'll just be half the gas. I'll just have to put half the gas." I'm like, "Dude, this is not sounding good."
Yeah, that doesn't.
And my wife will not let me go.
I agree.
And fly.
I agree.
So every time there's a small plane crash, I send him. You know, I'm like, "Dude, look again," and his response every time is user error. That's what he says.
He's right.
He's like, user error. So
I don't know the current statistic. It used to be in the 90% range of whether it's general aviation, commercial aviation, it's typically pilot error.
Yeah.
The machines are fine. Statistically speaking, I read this the other day because I was having a similar conversation with a buddy of mine. You'd need to fly twice a day for the next 2,500 years to even come close to being involved in an aviation accident. To put it in perspective for you. Now, you hear about it because when there is an aviation accident, it's big. It's big news, right? The one on the Hudson, the one before that. But if you look at it closely, none of them were related. The root cause for any of those accidents, they're all different. Now, if they were all the same, I would start worrying, about equipment.
Yeah.
And Boeing's come under the gun. Like they've got some problems they need to deal with, But I think a lot of that is culture. You start focusing on, well, I've got to have this many women or this many African American people or this many Caucasian, whatever. To me, that's the wrong focus. We hire people based on their qualifications.
Yeah.
But we're really more interested in their attitude.
Yeah.
Clint's book, it's the ABCs: attitude, behavior, character. Like going back to those 2 accidents, those 2 things that were both easily overcome, but the reaction was different. So we're humans. We are going to make mistakes. You ask my wife, I've probably already made 10 today.
Yeah.
But it's how you react to them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you do after the fact?
Absolutely. Yep.
That's what we're trying to find out. That's why I like to meet with these guys. I learned a lot about Kay just in talking with him for 10 minutes, and I could tell he's got the right attitude.
Yeah.
He's not going to come in here, I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
I'm a pilot.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You're human.
Yeah.
Right.
You're going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Man,
you want to take a ride? You want to go up in one, or
it's funny. So my grandpa also flew, and when I was very young, he took me up, and my dad had his license too. And so I remember being like, I don't know, I was very young, and there was like, you could just see out of the plane. You could just look out.
Yeah, it's right there.
And I was like, you could just fall out right here. This is insane. Like, what are we doing?
Don't open the door, Josh.
Right. I'm like, I can see the ground. Like, this doesn't feel safe. Like, what are these people doing? I trust, my dad and my grandpa. What are they doing to me up here? So maybe that's some trauma, I guess, from growing up. But look, this is incredible. Like,
y'all need to come see us.
And, we do.
And we've got simulators, so you can actually go up and not actually go up.
There you go.
If that helps.
That's more me.
Yeah. But so our podcast, Todd, and you may or may not know this, but we like to celebrate the people in Shreveport-Bossier that are making a difference, that are doing things, that are trying to make the community a better place, that are providing jobs, opportunities for people. You absolutely check all those boxes. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being here, number one.
Thank you all for having me.
Yes. And then secondly, for doing what you do. And, it can be, the stories can be unsung sometimes or untold, but ultimately, we want to encourage you and what you're doing to continue to make this a better place, because we need it, right? Our last guest said, I can't fix every problem in Shreveport, but I can go pay for somebody's laundry. And it was something like that hit me of, this is how we do it, right?
That's right.
It's not this huge, big, one person's going to ride in to save Shreveport-Bossier, because it's never going to happen, right? But it's all of us doing our part to make this better. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
it's the little things, Josh. It's like, There's another good book I'm reading right now called Unreasonable Hospitality. Have y'all heard of that book?
Yes.
Yep. Will Guidara talks about the restaurant industry. It's that last inch.
Yeah.
It's the little things matter so much, man. Just remembering somebody's name.
Yeah.
And maybe one thing about what they did, that matters more than anything. Like, just connect with a human being. I don't know why that's so hard. Yeah. Why is that so hard?
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, man. We're not going to fix Shreveport with one person. But if we all do a little bit and look, there's some pretty cool things happening in this town.
Yep.
I don't care what anybody says. Mm-hmm. And we need to quit talking bad about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we just had the
we all live here.
Do you know the Twin Blend guys, the Mangum brothers? You know their last name?
Yep.
Mark and...
Oh, yeah.
They have the Twin Blend. So their episode comes out in a couple of weeks, but they're so passionate. And they say the same thing. They're like, when you call it Ratchet City, it hurts my feelings. Like, this is it's like one of our kids.
We all live here.
Yeah.
Like, let's support it.
That's right. Absolutely.
I've listened to your podcast. Well, a friend of mine, David Alvis, that was a really good one. Oh, yeah. And he talked a lot about, things that he's doing for his people. Like, I wish more people would have that attitude. And I think that a lot of them do. We just don't know about them. So thanks for being an outlet to kind of uncover some of these unsung heroes, man.
We didn't even get to talk about your party with Cyndi Lauper playing at the party. Yeah. So
we work hard and we play hard. Yeah. But that was really for our people.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah. They took over the rooftop of the Remington. Yeah. At an 80s party. Wow. Yeah. Isn't that cool? Incredible. What are y'all's parties like?
That's not
lunch at Silver Star.
It's not. It's a Cyndi Lauper.
It's all relative, man.
It's a Cyndi Lauper cover band.
Okay. No, I love it.
Thank y'all so much.
And I do have to say, I have three people that work for you, and I do need to give them a shout out. Michael Brown is a good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. Him and his wife been coming to our church. Richard Hilliard, and his wife just started working in real estate, and she's doing awesome. She's crushing it in real estate at Berkshire Hathaway. And then Brian Middleton, I've known him for years, and he's a great guy. And he got me into Formula One, watching Formula One. So so those are three of the people that work.
Three
for you.
Excellent people.
Yeah.
Thanks for mentioning that.
Cool. So we need to do our sponsors.
Sponsor time.
We pretty much sponsor with our own companies. So
that's cool.
That's right.
So one of our sponsors, Priority Roofing, locally owned, family-ran business specializing in residential and commercial roofing, repairs, replacements, no jobs too small. 318-202-2123. Then we have Plumber for Hire, a locally owned plumbing company specializing in residential and commercial roofing. They do it all, commercial, small leak under the sink, whatever you need. Recently bought a jetter. They're doing jetting services.
Jetting.
Yep. So I'm ready to get the jetter over there at Ivey's.
I'd love to see you working that jetter.
Well, and I didn't realize how big it was. And so I bought the jetter, and then I'm like having to buy a trailer. So, then Clint Davis. Clint lets us use his space here for the podcast. Clint Davis Counseling, doing great things in our community, helping people make lasting internal change for external growth and success. 318-562-6903.
Ivey's Building Materials, 3 locations, Houghton, Blanchard, and Mansfield. Family owned since 1969. We're a home center format, so you can come in and get paint, plumbing, electrical, lawn and garden, or we got a pro lumber yard, so if you want to build a house or get a roof replaced or fix your siding, we can help you with all that. IveyLumber.com. Come in and see us.
Yeah.
Man, is there anything y'all don't do?
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
I'm open to ideas. Do we need to start something
that's
else?
right. We're always
That's
really cool, man.
Starting new stuff.
He wants to get into the entertainment space. So if you guys maybe collaborate, I don't know, like a water park or a theme park or something.
Yeah,
that he said he would be really excited.
Well, you asked me
Gonna bring Watertown back.
Yeah. Well, you asked me if I didn't have to get up and do what I do, what would I want to do? I was like, it'd be awesome to have like a haunted house, Look, you just like you just do creative stuff for like 10 months and then you're open for 2 months.
There you go. And
make all your money.
done.
Yeah, we have a lot of abandoned buildings. That'd be great. I walk in, I'm like, this would be a great haunted house.
The dark side of Layton.
Yeah.
Like jumping out and scaring people.
There you go.
I
Todd,
can't do it.
man, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank
So
y'all.
cool. So
I
cool.
really appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
All right,
A lot of
thank
fun.
you.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right.